Hi there, and welcome to Wade's Workshop. This is going to be Shed Talk number 4. Now, my Shed Talk series are mostly aimed at my existing subscribers, and in this particular one I'm going to try and answer a few of the questions that I've been asked along the way in the comments and what have you. I pretty much reply to most comments if they ask me a question, but I do find that sometimes a picture speaks 1,000 words, and it's quite often better to actually show the answer to the question rather than just type it out. Anyway, so we'll go through those. I've made a few improvements to the lathe. I've freed up a bit of room in the workshop by moving my chop saw. We'll go through that. I got a few little visitors to the shed. I can see them. There are 3 of them in total. If you're afraid of spiders, then this is probably not the one for you, but it's only a picture. I've got 3 little visitors. We'll show you those. And obviously I'll show you a few of the new little bits and bobs that I've bought recently. Okay, so here we go, guys. I've made another little improvement to the lathe for my purposes. And what I found was I've pushed this, let's just explain first. I've pushed this rear guard back by 5 inches. Now what I was finding, the guard which is bolted on these 2 bolts here, I did have to drill and tap some holes in the back of the electrical part of the head here. They were screwed on with these 2 screws here. I've still used this one here, but it was these 2 holes. The guard was right forward to here. And what I found was that because I turn a lot of aluminium and I quite often get stringy swarf, that it was building up here and wrapping around the job, and I was having all sorts of problems and having to clean it out really regularly, you know, once every half an hour or what have you, when I was doing a lot of production aluminium work. So now what I find is that I've got all that much more room in the back for the swarf to go into. So that's a good little improvement. I'll try and show you how I've done that. Let's just bring you in a bit closer. So yeah, as I say, I've moved back from those 2 holes, drilled another 2 holes there and there to move the guard itself back. The shape you can see in the bottom corner here, obviously this just came down here, this shaped part in steel, and it's what covers up the motor, which is underneath this area here to keep the swarf off it. So my first job, I did the bottom plate first, then I did this plate, which actually goes in right tight to the bed of the lathe. A little bit of bending, a little bit of sheet aluminium work, pop rivets, and then made this top plate on the top. It's pop riveted on, formed over, follows the same shape. It utilizes this hole here, and this one here is what holds the whole thing together. So if I undo these 3 bolts on the one the other end, it all still comes away in one piece for servicing and cleaning. So yeah, I've got 2 plates here, and then in the bottom I've got another aluminium plate pop riveted onto the little lip on the back of the guard, and it's formed down over and overlaps the tray of the lathe, and then it comes up to the end here with the guard, what have you, and it's formed over on the end of the tray. Originally, at this point here, this bolted with a M6 bolt, or M6 bolt I think, straight onto the lathe here. So I've made up a little stud leather bar, 5 inches, piece of silver steel, turned and threaded an M6 on the end of it, screwed it into the bed of the lathe, drilled and tapped it in the end. So again, there's a little 6mm bolt in there which holds it in position. And I can still undo this bolt and the other 3 on the headstock to remove the guard completely. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I could have made it out of steel, but I didn't have a sheet of steel. But I did have a sheet of aluminium, 500mm square. So simply with the aid of a tin snips, couple of pieces of bar in the vise for bending, and a dolly, that sort of thing, I've moved the guard back 5 inches, and it's probably given me 7-8 times the area for swarf to go in at the back of the lathe. I've been asked a question by a viewer relating to how the DRO is fitted on the crosslight. So basically this is one of those magnetic strip type DROs, not the optical type, and it's very similar in principle to like a digital calipers. So you've got a piece of angled plate here bolted onto the back of the cross slide itself. You can just see one of the screws there, and it's been utilized for the little cable clamp as well. there's another one just in here, and I believe there are 4 screws in total screwing it on. And on the up top of here, on the underside, is the strip itself, and then the pickup, using a couple of spacers, has simply been drilled and bolted onto the carriage itself, onto the, you know, the casting of the carriage, with appropriately spaced spacers, and then just pushed up. They are slotted, these holes, just pushed up to touch, and that's how they fitted that. Just while we're on that subject, on the back of the bed you can see the strip there on that machine portion, which I believe is either a magnetic strip or a steel strip, and then that on the underside of the carriage is the pickup for the carriage part of the DRO on a little bracket, and again that's touching against that metal strip. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's fitted. It connects up, it's bolted onto the back of the carriage, and let's see if I can bring you out. And I actually have got the cables running over the top here, got them on a little sticky bracket on the back, clamped there, and the cables are up and out of the way and out of the swarf in the bottom of the tray. Just going, continuing on the DRO, it's got the 2 plugs on the back that screw into the back of the control box itself, which come from the 2 axes, and then there's a little power cable which again comes from a little transformer which is plugged in here, and it takes up, you know, very little power. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the DRO. Well, I really don't have a name for this one, but he's a beast. It must be 55 mil from the bottom of that bottom leg to the top of the top leg. He is a beast. And I haven't given him a name yet because he's a newcomer. We got to that time of year where the spiders start coming in. For some reason, I would have thought they'd come in the winter. But the one in the corner, which is Eric, has been there all winter. He's been here pretty much all winter. But he's got a mate. So I decided to call him Ernie, because he got short, fat, hairy legs. So you got Eric and Ernie, Morecambe and Wise. Anyway, we'll take... So I've been asked a question about what dovetail cutter I was using when I was making my quick change tool post, etc. It's a 12mm shank. It's 20mm maximum on the dovetail, and it's a 60-degree dovetail cutter. And I believe I got this particular one from RDG Tools. So on the subject of the DRO, another subscriber has asked a question: if I were to buy the lathe again, would I buy it with the DRO fitted for the 200 and some odd quid extra that it costs to have it pre-fitted? And it's a really good question, and I've had a think about this. Having experienced the lathe for 6 months, what have you, when I bought it, I wanted to be up and running as quickly as possible. So yes, getting the DRO fitted was the correct thing to do. Having it arrive, DRO fitted, plug and play, ready, ready to go. With hindsight, the accuracy of the DRO isn't fantastic, although it's very good. You know, you can work within a thou at all times, no problem at all. If I come into the same reading on diameters, you know, I'm within hundredths. So I can't really complain at that. Would I have it with it fitted from new again? No, probably not. I would probably have an optical type DRO, that sort of thing, and would spend the extra money, buy the two pickups, buy the proper DRO, you know, with all its features and what have you, so that you can reset the zeros, you know, you can do all that sort of thing, and give positions known figures, which I can't do on mine. All I can ever do is measure the difference between 2 points and reset a zero anyway. So no, if I had all the time in the world and I could find the correct DRO first, nice low profile one for the cross slide would be the issue. If I could find the parts I needed to do the job, I probably wouldn't buy it with a DRO fitted from Warco. Probably buy all the parts myself. Now, to buy the two optical slides, the DRO, all the rest of it, I'd probably be up around the 500 quid mark. But yeah, I'd have to add an extra 250 quid. But the extra features, would they be worth it? Would the accuracy be worth it? Yes, I think it would in the long run. But then if you think I'm spending another 250 on the lathe, you know, it all adds up. Swings and roundabouts, but with hindsight, I probably wouldn't buy it with a DRO fitted, and I'd fit my own at a later date, as long as I wasn't in a hurry. But in the case of this, I was in a hurry. It was the right thing to do. I'm happy I did it. I don't regret it. So, yeah, that is what it is. Not a really good answer to the question, would I buy it with it fitted? It suited me at the time. With hindsight, I probably would go on, save a bit more cash up, and then over time, fit my own DRO of the quality I want. A few other little bits and bobs. I'm sure all of you have seen my Quick Change Tool Post series by now, all 17 episodes, whatever it was, in which I made, I believe it was that tool holder and that push tool, which I made at the time. Since then, I've made another tool for my 45-degree tool, just so that I can swap out the my general turning tool and the 45-degree tool, you know, at a moment's notice. I've got another holder as well. I haven't quite decided on what tool to put in that yet. A little bit controversial that I put fixed stops. I need to blacken this one up actually, but I put fixed stops on my quick change tools, or my tool holders. I only do that because it's dedicated to a particular tool, so that tool will live in there, you know, forever, so to speak. So yeah, I want a fixed stop. I mean, I'm going to adjust it, play about with it, and I will be making more tool holders with the adjuster on the top, should it be a sort of universal tool holder. But when I've got it dedicated for a tool, I can pretty much have a fixed stop. I know nothing's going to go out of adjustment. As long as I got no muck under the top of there, it's always going to drop into my center height, which I play with by getting that step height exactly right. So yeah, I'm up to 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 now. I've blackened them all up. I need to blacken that knob, but what I'm going to do is decide on what tool I'm going to put in here as a permanent fixture, make another one of these now, blacken them both together. So yeah, I'm building up my collection of tool holders slowly. So you'll probably have noticed that the 2 bits of wood from my here are gone, that I was saving to make a shelf in here and what have you. I had a slight change of plan. I used to have a large plastic container down here with my chop saw on top of it. And, you know, I wouldn't be able to stand there. I'd be over here somewhere, and all this space now I can come right to the wall. I got a lot more room to, you know, take a few paces around, and so to speak, in this area. I'll show you what I did with the timber. I've got part of it here, which is a leg which holds up my chop saw. So I'll show you where we are. I'll take this leg with me and we'll fit my chop saw up into its user position. So as you can see, I've got a hinged bracket on the wall there, onto a bit of a sturdy frame I've had to build onto the shed wall. And my chop saw is there tucked away out of the way, not taking up floor space, and it sits about 12 inches away from the wall, whereas it used to take up its whole footprint when I had it laying down here on the floor, so to speak. So I'll fold it up and put it in position. Right, so I've got my leg here. I have got to open the hole up a bit in that, it's a bit fiddly. So I can just pick the chop saw up, just trying to keep out of the shot here so you can see what I'm doing. And I've got the leg. See, I've got to open that hole up just a touch. And basically, I've got a wing nut that goes on there. And basically, that's my chop saw in its operator position. If I'm only ever cutting up, you know, nothing much more than about 12 inches long on it. So, yeah, if I got a full length of aluminium bar, which quite often happens, I'll just bring one of those into shot. You know, that would be a full length of my sort of 2-inch aluminium bar that I'd be chopping up. I can basically feed it. I got a little trestle outside. I can open the door, sit the end on a trestle for cutting up large lengths of bar and just feed it through and chop. And I normally put a fixed stop on and chop up any individual components I need to. So yeah, I just thought that was a convenient way of locating it. I used to sit it on top of that plastic box that you can see to the right of it, which I will be getting rid of. That's a temporary thing. And it was sort of wobbling about and falling. And, you know, with something like a chop saw, where there's a high risk of, you know, if something jumps or falls off the table while you're cutting, you could easily do yourself a bit of an injury. So yeah, a lot happier. It's screwed with 4 wood screws onto the frame. It sits there, and simply when I want to get rid of it, just get that bar out of the way. I undo my knob on the end. I can simply pull off the leg and just drop it down on its hinge out of the way. So yeah, happy with that. It's freed up a bit more space, and space is at a premium. So when I'm working on the lathe, I'm always sort of picking up Allen keys and what have you for, you know, changing tools, adjustments, various locks and what have you. And I always had sort of a couple of old, well, in fact, I think these ones were the ones that came with it, although I have got sets of Allen keys. Let me just pull one in. In fact, I got several sets of Allen keys, you know, these sorts of, this is a Bonder set I've had for years, ball-ended Allen keys. In fact, probably lay my hands on a couple of sets of those. And I've got Imperial sets, all sorts, and probably a whole drawer full of Allen keys, you know, right up to about 20 mil. Anyway, I've been fancying a set of T-handled Allen keys, which I could sit somewhere near the lathe, you know, maybe in some brackets or what have you, just to keep them out the way, you know, less likelihood of them rattling off the top and, you know, bouncing into my face and what have you when I'm using the lathe. And they'd be lying all over the countertop. And they're not highly visible, you know, I could be throwing them out in the swarf and what have you, even though I haven't done that. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, you may have seen I did a video and I actually visited Newgale Beach. And while I was there, I did mention that there was a garden centre at the end of the beach on the hill. And out of curiosity, as I was wandering around, it was a nice day, actually, before I went into the pub and had a pint. I thought I'd go into this garden centre. Well, anyway, what an absolute pleasure. This place was, oh, I was like a kid in a sweet shop. It was a hardware shop, and it was like an Aladdin's cave of stuff, all sorts of bits and bob, from high-end, you know, steel gear, all that sort of stuff, right down to sort of silver line stuff, agents for all sorts, from top-end quality right down to the sort of grassroots cheap quality. Anyway, when I was in there, I bought myself a set of T-handled Allen keys. So I'll show you those. This is the set I bought. Nielsen, I know it's Chinese, but quality's reasonable. I mean, you know, I'm not looking, it's not like I'm buying a micrometer. It's a set of Allen keys, and they are hard. I've tried them out, put a file on them. I didn't realise when I bought them that there's a full set of Torx in there, well, from T50 down to T10 in Torx T-handle parts. And also on the other side here was a set of Allen keys from M12 down to M2. So what I've done is the ones I use on the lathe, let's see if I can just bring you up. I basically stuck some cup hooks on the wall. So I just chucked them in there, and I know if I've lost one or what have you. I've also got my pliers up there and a couple of brushes. A bit dark. Let's see if I can. Yeah, it's not going to. Hang on, I got a light. Here we are. That helps. Move my work light. But yeah, I've got my T-handled. Why can't I say that? Yeah, I've got my T-handled Allen keys. That's better. She sells seashells. Basically on a rack on the wall, convenient, where I can just lay my hand on them when I'm working the lathe. So yeah, that's another little addition. So I think that whole set was, I think it was £19. And while I was there, I picked up a little assortment of nylock nuts. What size? M4 up to M12. You know, you don't get many M12s, and you get more as you go down. But yeah, just handy to have for when you're looking for a nylock nut. And I think the whole box, £5, something like that. So yeah, that's a shop I'll be going into again. Another question I've been asked is, what is this? And it used to sit on my headstock, and it's around the place, and I was asked a question as to what it was. It's what's called a, well, in this particular instance, it's a turner's cube. So the complete thing is a cube, as you can see, the one in the middle is a little cube about 15 mil square, and it has a 6 mil hole through it in all the orientations. That is inside a 30 mil cube, again, which has holes in it, you know, sort of 13 mil, something like that, 14 mil in all the faces, inside a 45 mil cube, and it goes up 15, 30, 45, and a 45 mil cube on the outside. And all of this was made on the lathe, and as you can see, the size of the cube, that will not come out from there. It was basically machined inside there when I made it. It was something I did as a bit of an experiment. It uses all sorts of turning techniques all in one article. I'm not going to do a video on making one of these. I mean, it's quite time consuming, but it's an interesting little project if somebody wants to sort of test out their skills. And there are several videos on YouTube. I think if you just look up Turner's Cube, and you'll see several people doing them, some people out of wood. You know, I think I've even seen them going down where you've got 4 cubes, not just that the 3 as I've got here. You've gone right down from sort of, they've gone you know, gone from sort of 45, what would that be, 60, 45, you know, gone for a bigger one again on the outside. But obviously I haven't got the capacity for that. Or you could go for something like a 6mm, 12, 18, you know, keep going up like that, even if you wanted a smaller one. But yeah, it was an interesting little project. It's a little conversation piece. In fact, I have taken it down the pub and asked people, how do you think you could make that? Or how do you think you get that in there? I'm totally baffled. They wouldn't realise, you know, not being machinists, that it was machined while it was in there. But yeah, interesting little thing. Look it up on YouTube. You know, it's a great conversation piece, this one. The Turner's Cube. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Shed Talk. As I said at the beginning, it's mostly aimed at my subscribers as opposed to new viewers. I am finding that the projects I'm doing for beginners are getting a very good response from beginners. So I'll keep doing a few of those, but I mix it up with a bit of this and a bit of that, you know, a bit more advanced stuff and beginner stuff as well. See how we get on. I'm still getting a bit of a flavour for the channel, but I do like to explain things for absolute beginners. So those of you who are a bit more experienced, please bear with me on that one. But the beginners, somebody's got, you know, everybody's got to start somewhere. So, as you can see from this one, I've bought a few new bits and bobs, which have been filling up the shed even more, and I've been making a few improvements to make more room in the shed. So, yeah, it seems to be a vicious circle. You buy more gear, takes up more space, you sort things out, get rid of more stuff. It's an ongoing thing. But, yeah, I mean, I've only had the shed set up 6 months, I believe, in here, since I actually put it on site. So, yeah, it's coming along. It's a work in progress. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope I've answered most of the questions that I've been asked in this video.